Good morning, friends. Today we are going to talk about cast iron. I am going to be sharing with you how to clean it, how to season it, how to cook with it, and if you have old cast iron, I'm going to show you how to re-season it. Hi friends, I'm Crystal. Welcome to my channel, and like I said at the beginning, we're going to talk about all things cast iron. Everybody has their own way to clean cast iron. I am sharing from what I do. So this is how I take care of and manage my cast iron. I bought this little 10-inch frying pan probably 20 years ago. And I tell you, this is my favorite frying pan. I also own a 12-inch frying pan and a 5-quart Dutch oven. So why would a person choose cast iron over so many other options out there? And I think one of them is the fact that cast iron is very, very durable. I've talked to women before that they're using pans that are 50, 60 years old. Their grandmothers cooked with them. If you take care of a pan well, you will have it, your grandchildren will be using it most likely. So I think that they're a good investment. And because they will last you a lifetime and beyond, they're relatively inexpensive. You can buy one piece at a time. You don't have to go buy a huge set of them. They're easy to obtain, whether it's the internet. Sporting goods stores will usually have cast iron for sale because it's something that works really well if you're cooking over a campfire or something like that. Okay, let's talk about the basics of cast iron. Cast iron is something that needs to be seasoned, and it needs to be re-seasoned. When you buy a lot of brands of cast iron, mine, by the way, the brand is all Lodge, and I've been very happy with Lodge cast iron. They come pre-seasoned, so that is very helpful. I called the company because I had concerns about what did they pre-season them with, because we are cooking food on this after all, and I really wanted to know. They said it's a vegetable oil blend that they pre-season it with. So that can be really helpful. I have a quick little story to share. I had a young lady staying at our house one time, and she was there for a while, and we were kind of helping her out. So I went to town one day, and she decided she was going to help me out, and decided that she would give my cast iron pans a really good scrubbing. And she ended up scrubbing all the seasoning off, everything that I had built up and everything that had come on the pans to begin with. I bless her heart, she really was trying, and she was trying to help me, and of course, I let it go with grace because life happens, and she meant well, right? Anyway, so no matter whatever condition your pans are in, whether they come seasoned or something happens like what happened to me, you will continually need to frequently season the pans. The seasoning will come off over time as you cook. Another great thing about cast iron is it is a great conductor of heat. And so it will hold the heat and it will maintain the heat evenly, and that is what allows for such amazing cooking on a cast iron. One problem that people often have with cast iron is they say, well, it sticks. So there's two reasons why you might have food sticking onto your cast iron pans. The first one is it simply needs to be seasoned or re-seasoned. And if that isn't the problem, then the next problem is learning how to properly cook with it. So those are two things we're going to cover. The first thing that I'm going to start by showing you is how I clean my cast iron pans. I had this little messy frying pan, and basically all I do is turn my burner up on high, and I try to clean my frying pans as soon as I am done using them. They're still warm, but if it didn't happen right away, just put them on the burner, turn the burner on high, and add some water. I let that come to a boil, especially if I have food that has kind of stuck here and there. It just helps lift everything off. Then I take it over to the sink and I dump that out and I rinse that out. then I put it back onto the burner. So you notice at no point I have used soap. So I happen to be in the camp that you do not use soap on your cast iron. The reason I don't use soap is because it will break up and disintegrate any type of coating that you have. And that will give you nothing but problems when it comes to cooking with it. So I only use soap, as you will see here in a few minutes, if I am going to just simply re-season the whole pan. After I bring the pan back to the stove, I then let the heat, I have it on high, I let that get really hot and get rid of any moisture that's on the pan. I then let the pan heat up until it gets pretty hot. Now, cast iron, from everything that I have read, cast iron has small pores in it. When those pores heat up, it allows the oil that you put on the pan to kind of soak in and gives you a better coating on your pan. I've also heard people say, no, it doesn't. But everything I've read says that it does. So once my pan has gotten nice and hot, I then take a little bit of olive oil. Now, I've also used coconut oil. I do not use shortening. I know a lot of people do use shortening. I don't use it because I don't even cook with it. I don't have it in my house. But I do have olive oil, and I do have coconut oil. The problem I found with coconut oil is it was too thin. And olive oil is a much thicker oil, and I feel like does a much better job. So I pour in just a little bit of olive oil, and I take a napkin, and I spread that all around my pan. And then I take a second napkin. If there's any oil left over, or if I've got it a little too thick, I wipe that. You just want a very thin coating on your pan. I then let it sit on the burner until the pan begins to smoke. And as soon as the pan smokes, I remove it from the burner and I'm done. Now you're going to say, if I don't use soap, how do they get clean? How do they get disinfected? It's from heat. The heat of the burner is what is killing the germs on the pan. So that was another one back in the day that I had my message board. I had ladies asking me, but without soap, that it's not getting clean. It is getting clean because of heat. And as a side note, I've used commercial dishwashers in the past, and that's how they work. They wash things very fast with entirely no soap and super, super hot water. So hot water kills germs. That's how your pan is clean. Now, when it comes to cooking on cast iron, here is the number one secret: patience. You put your frying pan on a burner, set it on the temperature that you are wanting to cook on. You don't need to set it on high to get it hot. Just set it on the temperature that you planned it to be cooking on, and allow the pan to heat up completely before you do anything. Don't start cracking eggs into a cold pan, throwing butter or oil into a cold pan. Don't do that, because you're going to end up with problems with sticking. Wait until the pan has completely heated up, and then add your butter or oil. So in this case, I was making some breakfast burritos, and I had about a dozen eggs that I was going to be cooking in the pan. Now, scrambled eggs is one of those things I've heard from a lot of people over the years. My scrambled eggs always stick. Okay, so when you go to cook scrambled eggs, let your pan come up to temperature. I have mine on kind of a lowish setting. I don't like to cook my eggs too hot. And I was cooking about a dozen eggs because I was making some breakfast burritos. So I let my pan come up to heat. Once my pan was hot, I put my butter in there. I let that melt, and then I poured in my dozen eggs. Now is the time where you need to have patience again. Don't mess with it to begin with. Everybody wants to get in there and start stirring and stirring and stirring. Don't mess with it. Wait until the bottom starts to set and the edges you can kind of see have started to set. At that point, gently start with your spatula. Gently start folding and kind of chopping it up and mixing it up. And allowing the uncooked egg part to kind of filter down to the bottom and continue to stir and chop and move them around. And as you can see with mine, I cooked a whole dozen eggs in cast iron, and I had basically nothing sticking. That is how you can have success in cooking eggs in your cast iron. So wonder if you inherit your grandmother's cast iron. Wonder if you get lucky at a garage sale and you find a cast iron pan. But in both cases, it is either rusted inside or it's just looks nasty. It doesn't look like anybody's taking care of it. What do you do to restore cast iron so that it becomes something that you can use? Well, I got to tell you something. These are kind of the stories that I would rather not have to share. But in light of trying to help people with their cast iron, I'll be completely honest right now. So I had cooked a meal in my Dutch oven. And knowing that I was going to make this video, I decided that I would not clean out the pan that night because it was getting later and I wasn't in the mood to film at that moment. And so I said, I will get to this tomorrow. Well, guess what happened tomorrow? Something came up. My husband and I had to go into town. By the time we got home, I was like, no, I've got chores to catch up on. I got some things to take care of. I can't get to that video yet. I'll get to it tomorrow. So there my pan sat with liquid in the bottom. Wasn't a lot, just a coating on the bottom, with the lid flipped upside down on it before I finally had the opportunity to get back to it. So we're talking 2 days, 3 days later. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you what a disaster I had. The whole top of the lid, because it had been sitting like this, the whole top of the lid was wet from condensation and had big rusty spots on it. On the inside of my pan, I also had it was wet and I had rusty spots in it. I don't know where my brain went, but you know, it happens to all of us, right? So I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to show you how you can take a pan that has not been cared for properly and restore it. I don't think the video on this really shows how bad the pan was, but I began by doing the exact same thing that I do when I clean a regularly scheduled cleaning of my frying pans, or this pan in the past. I add the water, I take my brush, I scrub it around, I get off all the bits and pieces. But this time, and there was just so much more, and things that, little bits of rust spots and things like that. I took it to the sink, emptied that out. This time I used soap. And I added that to my sponge, and I scrubbed all the inside of that out. And rinse that off well. And put that back on the stove. When you need to re-season a pan, like I am about to do, turn your oven on to 400 degrees. Now, at this point, after I had let it dry, I repeated the same process with the oil. This time I put oil in the bottom, I put it around the sides, I even put it up around the rim. You can put it on the outside of the pan or the bottom outside of the pan if it's in bad shape. That part of my pan was fine, so I just focused on the inside. And I put that pan into my 400 degree oven. At that point, I moved over to the lid and I scrubbed the lid real well to try to get rid of as many spots and things that I could see. And I did that to the bottom of the lid. My lid has these little pokey things that you can see. I think it's for condensation to help and whatnot. So they're a little bit challenging to kind of work around. But nonetheless, I washed it, I rinsed it, and I just stuck that in the oven right away to dry off completely. I put it inside my oven on 400 degrees and I put it in there for about 10 or 15 minutes. I pulled it out and I repeated the same process just as if it was the inside of my pot. I put the oil on it everywhere, I turned it over, I got oil on the inside or the bottom side of the lid. Wiped off any excess, popped that into the oven again. So I let the pot and the lid cook for 1 hour. When I brought them out, they look so much better. Now I have pots that have been re-seasoned. Most likely, I may do this another time or two just to set that seasoning really well, because in the process of the scrubbing, I am sure that I also got rid of some of the original coating that had come from Lodge on the pan. So I am sure that I will be doing this a second time. If you find that you are using your pans correctly as I've described and your food is still sticking, you just may need to re-season again. If I'm going to re-season a pan a second time. I don't use soap. I just simply heat it hot and spread the oil on it like you saw, bake it in the oven again, and I just do that every so often if I really feel like my pan has not gotten enough coating on it. Okay, you guys, I hope that that helped give you an understanding of caring for your cast iron, maintaining it, and what not to do. Do not let it sit with food in it for 2 or 3 days because your life got too sidetracked. Not cool. And also how to re-season cast iron that you might get lucky and find. I hope you found it all helpful, and I thank you for watching this video. And don't forget, give me a like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. And I'll see you all next time. Alrighty, bye-bye.